What's up, my mathletes? That's right, Mr. Muscarella coming at you with another solving quadratics by factoring video. But this time, the a value, not going to be 1. Now we're going to go into a little bit of uncomfortness zone for some people, because this one is going to present a little bit more potentially of a challenge. So again, remember, when we get an equation in standard forms, that means our ax squared plus bx plus c. We want to make sure we get that set equal to 0. Now, what's a little bit different on this one, the a value is not 1. So this number is not going to be 1 anymore. It's going to be something else. Like here in example 1, we're going to have a -7 for the a value. So we got to think about numbers that can multiply to get 7. In example number 2, we're going to have to think about numbers that multiply together to get 15. That one's going to be a little bit more challenging because we have more options. And in example 3, we got to think about examples of factors that will give us a product of 3. So when we do these factors that we'll be looking for that first number, they're always going to be positive. You don't have to worry about that being negative. We always want to get that first term, the a term, in our quadratic to be positive. So let's take a look at example number 1. Now there's no GCFs or anything to factor out as we move through this problem. Again, keeping everything nice, neat, and organized. Move that 44 over, so we'll get 7n squared minus 44n minus 35 equals 0. So to get 7, to get that very first term, to get that, there's only 2 possible factors of 7 that are both positive. So when you do this, you're going to write 7n in one of them and 1n, but of course, you know, we're math students, so we're not going to write 1n, we're just going to write n in there. Now again, when I look at my c term, when I look at this value right here, that value is negative. So that means one of my terms has to be a plus and the other one is going to have to be a minus. Now, which one is going to depend on the way things play out? So I'm going to have to do some thinking here when I do this. So when I think about 35 or negative 35, I want to think about factors of negative 35. So when I do that, I could have 1, negative 35, or negative 1, and positive 35. And I might test them out in here to kind of see what's going on. So if I put plus 35 here and a minus 1 there, let's see what that would give us if we were to multiply these together, just the outside and inside terms. So 7 times minus 1, that gives me negative 7n. And then 35 times n gives me 35n. Now if I add those up, that gives me a sum of negative or positive 28n. So I know that these are not going to be my factors. So I want to cross those out, and I could also cross out the one above it because I know that one's not going to work either. Because if I were to try that, let's play around with that one. So we can erase that one because that won't work. So if we did plus 1 and minus 35, well, if I multiply 7 times negative 35, like that number is just really big. And there's no way that I can kind of work with that to get back to a negative 44. So I'm not even worried about that, bro. So those first 2 are gone. So I'm done thinking about those factors. Now my other possible factors of 35, so all these are gone right here, so that's gone. Now I want to take a look at 5 and 7. Of course, one of them will be positive and one of them will be negative. So maybe it's plus 5 and minus 7. If that doesn't work, maybe it's minus 5 and plus 7. If that doesn't work, maybe the 7 and the 5 are in the wrong place, and I can put 7 here and minus 5 there. Or maybe I put a negative 7 and a positive 5. So those are all the possibilities that can work, that can go into my binomial here. So again, we're just going to play and test. And this is one of the things we just want to play with. Sometimes we might get it right off the bat, and other times we might not. So if I multiply these 2 together, right, I'll do 7 times negative 7. That part is negative 49n. And then 5 times n gives me positive 5n. Now if I add that up, I get negative 44n. Oh, check it out. I got that on the first try. All right, cool. So we ended up getting that on the first try. So those are going to be my 2 factors right there. So that's pretty cool. I got there a little bit quicker than I may have otherwise. So I thought that through, and that was kind of the thinking process that my brain is going through. Now, when I do that, All right, now I have my two factors and I have it set equal to 0. So now I've discovered the two factors that whose product will give me 0 when I have the quadratic 7n squared minus 35 equals 44n. Now again, just like before, we're going to take each factor and set that factor equal to 0. When I solve each one, so I'll get 7n equals negative 5, and then you divide both sides by 7, you'll get n equals negative 5/7 on the left. On the right side, only one step there, add 7 to both sides, and you get 7. So my two answers are negative 5/7 and 7. Those are my two values for n. And again, sometimes we may have to think about this and play with it a little bit longer. That's okay. Eventually, you'll get the right pair. And the more you do these, the easier they'll come to you. So lots of practice is going to cultivate that deeper knowledge. So that's example 1. All right, now, with example 2, we've got a little bit more stuff to play with here. Because 15 isn't just 1 times 15. We have that as an option, but we could also, so we could have 1 and 15, or we could have 3 and 5. Like those are two different pairs of numbers that have a product of 15. So again, we'll start this the way we usually do. We'll get everything set equal 0, making our a term positive, and writing it in standard form. So we'll do all of this first. Now, again, I'm going to look in two places here. I'm going to look first at my c value, and that's positive. Now, the only way to get a positive number when you multiply, there's two options. You can do positive times another positive, and that'll give you a positive, or you could do two negatives multiplied together to give you a positive. So those are my options there. Now, which one of these it is there's that clue right there in my middle term, in the b term. Since that is positive, that means the types of numbers I'm going to use are going to both be positive. So when I factor this, I'm going to have two positive values in here. So what does that mean? Well, when we set up our binomial, I know that that first part and that second part, there's going to be a plus in there for both of them. Now, I'm not really sure which way this is going to go, if it's going to be 3 and 5 or it's going to be 15 and 1. So again, I'm just going to play with this for a second. So I'm going to try 15n, and I'm going to try 1n. So I'm going to break that 15n squared into 15n and n. Now the 4. Again, with 4, we're going to have some values here for 4. So to get 4, we could do 4 and 1, or we could do 2 and 2. And I know I'm using both positive because that was what we were talking about a little bit before. So if I put a plus 2 there and a plus 2 there, and I multiply 15 and 2 together, I end up with 30, and that's way bigger than that 16, so it's not going to be 2 and 2. All right, so that one's gone. So I thought about that, and that's not going to work. So now I got to try the 4, oops, wrong thing. I'm going to try the 4 and the 1. Now with 4 and 1, I can either put the 4 here and the 1 here, or my other option is I can put the 1 here and the 4 there. Either one, I'm going to have some stuff to play with and work out. So let's try this 1 and 4 first. Again, if I multiply 15 times 4, that gives me 60. And 60 is way bigger than 16, bro. Like, way bigger. And I'm not going to, if I multiply these two in the middle, 1 and n, that gives me 1. I can't combine 60 and 1 to end up with a 16. So that's gone. So let's get rid of that possibility. But then, maybe I slide the 4 up here and the 1 right there. So if we do that, let's kind of see what this gives us. So if we were to think about this, right, 15 times 1 gives me 15, and then I have another 4 right here. So if I had 15n and a 4n, well, that would give me 19n. If this middle term right here was 19 plus 19, that would be the right pair. So that's kind of told me a couple of things. This, because I tried my 4 and my 1, I tried my 2 and my 2, and neither one of those gave me this quadratic. So that means 15, and so I'm going to start completely over. But this first term, the 15n and n, that is not going to be 15 and 1 are my two factors. So 15 and 1, they're out. So now I got to try 5 and 3. So I'm going to put a 5n here and a 3n there. Because if I were to multiply 5n times 3n, that will give me 15n squared. So now I'm back to the drawing board over here with the 2's and the 4 and 1. So again, sometimes we just get lucky right off the bat, and other times it might take us a little while. And so let's play with this one. Now I'm going to go, don't know which one. We got 4 and 1, 2 and 2. I'm gonna go with the 2s. I want to try those. So 15n squared plus 16n plus 4. And I'm going to try to get that middle term of 16. So let's multiply 5n and 2. If I do that, I get 10n. Okay. If I multiply 2 times 3, I get 6n. If I add them up, woo, winner, winner, chicken dinner, I get that 16n. All right, cool. So I finally unlocked, I decoded, I figured out what the 2 factors are for this problem. So finally, after a long adieu, we do get the correct factors. Now from here, we're going to go ahead and then write down each factor like we did before. So that equals 0. So 5n plus 2 equals 0. And then 3n plus 2 equals 0. The first one, we'll get 5n equals negative 2. And then when we divide both sides by 5, we'll get n equals negative 2/5. And then the second one, when we get 3n equals negative 2, we'll end up with a value of n equals negative 2/3. So my 2 solutions to this particular quadratic are going to be n equals negative 2/5 and n equals negative 2/3. All right, so that's the one that's going to take a little bit longer when you have multiple combinations for the a term. Now in the first example we did, there was only one combination for the a term, and because that was a prime number. The a term in example number 2, that's composite number. So we're going to have more options to possibly play with for that. Now, in example number 3, our a term is positive, so that's going to be pretty good because we're going to have, when we set that up, we'll start with our 3n squared, and be careful, move that over, plus 7n minus 40 equals 0. And from here, to get 3n squared, we only have one possibility because 3 is a prime number. So go ahead and hit pause. Let's see what you come out with, and let's see how you do. All right, how did we do playing around and getting those 2 correct factors? So the 2 factors we should have come up with would have been 3n minus 8 and n plus 5, getting that set equal to 0. When you solve each of those, of course, you get n equals 8/3 and n equals negative 5. So 1 point for getting the factors correct, and then 1 point for each one of your answers. So that's how that would be set up. Now, if you're not sure, because this is the thing that it takes a little bit to play around with, you could take your binomials, all right, which in this case is 3n minus 8. So 3n minus 8, and you can multiply that by your other binomial, n plus 5. And when you multiply those two together, you should end up with the trinomial that you are trying to factor, 3n squared plus 7n minus 40. So I'm going to take the first terms and multiply them together. 3n times n, 3n squared. When I multiply 3n times 5, I'll get plus 15n. And then when I do the inside term, so that's first, that's outer. Next we do the inside term, so negative 8 times n gives us minus 8n. And then negative 8 times 5, we end up with negative 40. When I clean these 2 middle terms up, that will end up giving me a trinomial of 3n squared plus 7n minus 40, which does match my trinomial that I was trying to factor. So you can always check yourself before you wreck yourself. And please make sure that you're actually doing the math yourself. Don't farm it out to some app like Simblue or Photomath or any of that junk, because that means you're not thinking. And we all need you to think for yourselves and not farm that out to something else. So that's going to help develop your mathematical mindset. Because in class, you're not going to be able to use that stuff. So don't even get in the habit of using that, because that is not a helpful thing for you in any math course. So make sure that you do your steps, take your time. It's going to take a little bit maybe for some of you to go through that thinking process. But again, the more you do, the more quickly you'll start to be able to see some of these number patterns. All right, that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you every day. Make sure this day and every day you make it a great day. It's your choice. I'll catch up with you guys later. I love you, and peace out.